Hi, I'm Niamh.
I'm Jen, and we're Biz Buddies.
So you may have noticed a slight change in our introduction. We are going to be calling this podcast Biz Buddies, and it's all a work in progress. So we decided, let's make sure we change that out this time.
It seems just a little less formal, a little more fun, and I think the focus, at least my focus, is a bit more on the buddy side. I mean, yes, we're going to talk about business stuff too, but Biz Buddies sounds like, we get together for drinks and stuff.
Exactly. In fact, I think that if at some point we should have like a margarita chat where we're like both get a drink, and you out there in the audience can get a drink provided you're not driving anywhere, and we can all hang out.
I think that sounds good. Of course, it might be morning drinking for me because nighttime for me
is really strange.
Maybe I will put some Kahlua in my coffee or something. How about that? That'll work.
Irish coffee.
Whiskey coffee, yeah.
Yeah, so today we are going to do the first in a series. Well, every month we plan on doing one podcast where we tell you what's up, what we're up to this month. So this episode is What's Up August. You might be like listening to this after August, or it's only going to be published hopefully sometime in the middle of August. But we really want to, in the interest of getting that behind the scenes and that shop talk in so that you can see like what's going on in our businesses right now. Like I always find that a lot of business podcasts are very polished and they're like, well, this is what I've come up with after years of struggling and figuring it out. And then they show you the totally polished final piece of like how their business has ended up. And sometimes they'll reflect back on the struggles that they went through. But I really like to know like what's someone working on right now. Like sometimes when a big guru type is doing a launch, I'll be like, well, what's going on for them? Like, are they having arguments at home, or are they finding it really stressful, or are they at this point where that bit is really easy? I always want to know like what's going on for them in their business right now. So that's our plan with the What's Up episode, is to just let you know what's up right now. And sometimes we'll be doing awesome things, and sometimes we'll be like, I'm not doing much right now, because I think both of us work sort of in interesting waves. So yeah, so this is gonna be fun.
I totally agree. Well, and I think both of us have had a lull over the summer, because for me, I have special needs kids, and summer is actually probably the hardest time of year because school's not there for the structure. So we try to put structure in for them in other ways, but my workday shrinks drastically. And then we do usually try to take a trip of some kind. Actually, we both took our kids to Disneyland this year, not together, unfortunately. We should have met up there, but you know what? Disneyland's just too crazy. I actually found it excruciating and exhausting, even though the kids did like it.
Oh yeah, I found it was like the memory of it is really fun, but at the time during it was a little challenging.
The best part for me was I brought my Snapchat spectacles and I pressed the button, so I got these 10-second snaps of video while we were on the rides and going through, Storybook Land, boat ride, and It's a Small World. The snaps are beautiful. It makes it look like we had a really good time.
Well, that's the whole thing, is like you want your kids to think that they had this amazing time.
Look how fun it was. Woo! Forget all the rides, all the sunburn standing in lines forever. Trying to get in and out of the bathrooms with so many people. Yeah, we'll forget all that stuff and just have the beautiful memories of the pictures and snaps we took.
Exactly. And for those of you who are listening to the audio, Jen was just wearing her very cool Snapchat glasses.
They are cool. Actually, I really had given up on Snapchat, and then I got these glasses in April. Not that I'm actually snapping more, but I take videos on the Snapchat goggles because it ends up being a beautiful circular video that you can turn anyway with your phone. It's kind of cool. And then I just save them to my camera roll and publish them other places. So.
Nice. And also you can get really good photos out of that. Like Mike does that a lot. He records and then later chops it out for a photo. But I want to make sure we don't get too long. That's the only thing that happens with me and Jen, is we just tend to like ramble into different areas of life.
I'm very tangential. I'm sorry.
But I love that because you bring our conversation in interesting ways, and then I'll usually be the one to sort of drag on topic.
We balance each other that way. So August, what are you up to in August, Niamh?
August is interesting. So I have the same thing, Jen, where I've kind of taken the summer a lot slower. And so I've been building my business around challenges for the last couple of years. So it means that there's these sort of set points in my year. Like I think I finally settled on, I'm going to do a 30-day challenge once a year in September, and then 2 10-day, because the 30-day ones are really good and they're really impactful, but they're so exhausting. So that's my plan. So then I have these sort of time periods, but I plan out like, okay, when is going to be the perfect time? Because when you're getting someone to commit to stuff, it's very hard to get people to commit to like a challenge or something during the summer when they're traveling and they're doing all the stuff and they're kind of like, the mood is just not there. But then you can, in September, then all of a sudden kids are back in school, people have their structure back. And there's also this sort of like fresh energy of like, I've had a rest and I'm ready to attack my business again. So it's a perfect time for a challenge. But because of that, it's like there's this summertime where I can't really, well, it's not that I can't do much, but I'm sort of waiting for the next challenge. So one thing is I finally decided that, well, there's a couple things I'm doing, but I finally decided I'm going to launch something that teaches challenges, because people ask me for this all the time. And I've been waiting and waiting because I wanted to create like the perfect product that teaches them everything. And then finally I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do a group program, like, because we would be waiting forever. And there are people out there who want these answers now, right? So I'm putting together a 4-week group program where I'm going to meet with people once a week to use some slides to teach them like how I plan my challenges. And I'm calling it Challenges with Impact. So at the moment, I have been creating the sales page for that. And I was saying to Jen, like, for some reason, creating the sales page was super challenging because I'm at this like, this mellow energy where it's like, what? I have to like think in sales talk? It's kind of challenging. So over the last couple of days, I've been putting together a sales page for that and putting together like, how is that going to be delivered? I decided to do it through Thinkific instead of using my own website just for ease. Like I was like, okay, how can I put this together with the least amount of front end effort? I don't want it to be this big thing. It's just something that I'm going to sort of sell on the side because it's not my main focus. So I was trying to figure out how I could do it in a way that would give a great user experience, but not have as much time spent for me. So it's been really interesting. And then I'm also trying to like do some tidy on my websites and plan for my challenge so that I can get ahead of the game and get more things like lined up and happening before it's crunch time. I'm a big procrastinator, really.
So knowing you as I do, that your challenges, you always do them live, you have things going on. What is the Challenges with Impact group course? Are you teaching that live or are you doing like a bunch of content ahead of time?
Oh no, I'm teaching it live. Like, okay. Because I wanted to have a course that teaches this somewhat. So what I'm planning to do is create this program where I'm going to teach live. So I'm going to hop onto Zoom with a bunch of people, teach them, use some slides and stuff too. Like, so the only thing I'll be creating in advance each week is the slides. And then I'll be teaching it live. It's going to be like a 90-minute call so that I can teach some stuff and then get some questions so that we can really bring it to life and look at what are the areas that people struggle with and stuff. At this point now, so many people have asked me questions and I've run so many challenges that I do have sort of the pillars of it really like that. Teaching that is not a problem. It's just finding the time to put it together has been the problem. So I figure if I, start a group program, then it helps me to actually, get it done because it means that I'll be getting it done live with other people there, which brings this fresh, fun energy. And then at the end, I'll have a recording and I'm going to sell that as its own course. So I'm really excited about that.
I think that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like a nice, easy way to do it too, without too much stress as you build up to your bigger challenge yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to I was realizing that the word I really want to embody over this summer is ease, because I'm stressed all the time, I realized. I mean, like I have all this life stuff going on. I'm trying to move. We've got, some health things cropping up this summer. And yeah, we took this big, intercontinental family trip. And I realized it's like, you know what? I want to try just doing a few things where it's light and easy and fun. I love my challenges, but it's a lot of front end work. And so I was like, if I'm going to do something, I want it to feel fun, and I want it to feel fun for the end user as well. So I'm hoping that's what it will be for them. And I thought that this was kind of, just a fun way to do it. I don't know. It remains to be seen. I'm definitely going to be updating you guys next month on how all that went. Probably by the time this is published, I think that Challenges with Impact will already be running. Like, I'll already have my group. So
that would be awesome. Yeah, you'll totally have to update it. You know what? I'm doing something kind of similar where I'm taking something that people ask me about on the side and creating a quick offering, because I've not had a new offering up for quite some time. And actually, Niamh, you're the one who suggested this in the first place, but it's true. People ask me that all the time, which is this is now my third podcast that I've hosted, and I've also been on a lot of other people's podcasts. And at one point, people ask me like, oh, how do you get on other people's podcasts? How do you pick which podcast to be on? How did you start your podcast? How did you know what to call it? How do you know what to talk about? How do you find your guests? All these sorts of things. So I'm putting together a quick podcast powwow offering, which is just a one-off, one-on-one, unless you want to do more than one, depends kind of what's going on, of either planning your own podcast or planning out a strategy for a podcast that you want to be on to spread your message and reach more people. Because podcasts, obviously, since we're doing one right now, they're really impactful. People listen to them while they're driving, walking, jogging, walking dogs, exercising, cleaning house. There are all these times in life when you don't need your mind on exactly what you're doing as much as other times. I mean, you need your mind on driving when you drive, but you can still listen to something without it interfering. So I know podcasting has made a huge difference for me. So I'm kind of excited to have a new offering. And then there's one other thing that actually, Niamh, you suggested this one too.
Yeah.
That just popped up, which is I'm compiling a book of interviews from my Financial Fluency podcast.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that one.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Niamh's going to write the foreword, and I'm taking a selection. I'm still having a moment of being, at first I did sort of a broad selection across different categories of people I've interviewed, because we're up to 115 episodes now. Most of which are interviews. So at first I was doing every other one as a solo episode, and then the requests to be on the show got enough that I turned it into an all interview format. And then I even went to twice a week for a while, though I'm going to go back to once a week now that we're doing this podcast, because having more than 2 shows of anything go out at the same week is hard to keep up and promote each episode as much as you would like to if you have more than one. So anyways, I'm taking a selection of the interviews and putting them into book form, because personally, I really like reading compilations of different people's stories about different things. And I feel like I've had some really exceptional guests, and I'm excited to share their stories that way. So it's an experiment. We'll see, do people like reading these interviews? Do I get some response? If so, I'm going to do a series, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting, because like I've always, as an entrepreneur, I've always searched for books like with entrepreneurial stories. And sometimes like I've found books of interviews, and that's been really, really great. But I find that a lot of like what's good about it or not good about it, it depends on the interviewer. It depends on like the style. If it's very formal, it just comes up across as like sort of distant and kind of boring. And like, I find that your podcast interview style kind of naturally leads people to sort of relax and just chat.
I'm not very formal. Yeah. Very informal. I'm always like, make sure you have some water, because you got to stay hydrated, and let's talk about your kid. Well,
yeah, so
I do get off track sometimes, but I am editing as well. Actually, this morning, I looked at one of my podcast guests, is my friend Amy Burks, who I really like a lot. And I told her, I looked at the time that her podcast was, and I was like, it was a bit longer than most. It was a little over an hour, because she's an author, and we talked about her book, and we talked about all that stuff. But I also told her, based on the length of the transcription of hers versus the other ones, I was like, you actually get in twice as many words per minute as any of my other guests. We were over 12,000 words for her interview, and the longest the others were 65 or so. One was even like 3,500. We had one really short one with lots of pauses. So I was like, you should put that on your value proposition, twice as many words as anyone else. So I'm editing that one down quite a lot, because we obviously went off in lots of different directions, and I want to keep it kind of similar length throughout. But yeah, it's been a fun project to work on and to see how it reads. I mean, obviously I've changed some things fix some run-on sentences, take out ums, ahs, likes, fillers. But it's interesting to see how people's stories read that they spoke, you know.
This is really interesting because actually, I mean, you viewers / listeners won't know this because you haven't been party to all of our calls so far, but we almost never, like the two of us, almost never create new offerings. So it's kind of funny that for our first What's Up month, we both have a new offering.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that interesting. For me, what's interesting about creating a new offering is like the refreshing of the emotional roller coaster side of it, where I'm so used to what I offer now. I can talk about it in all kinds of different ways. You know, when I'm out and about, I was at a birthday party the other day and someone was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you." And I actually talked about my business in a totally different way, in a new way that I'd never talked about it before. And he was like, "Wow, that's really interesting." And I was like, "Oh, cool. I'm going to start incorporating that." But now it's like, it's just a different thing to talk about. I'm not talking about video. I'm talking about challenges, and normally when I'm talking about challenges, I'm telling people to take one, you know. So it's interesting. But I found that I had like this so it was like 4 days where I was supposed to record this sales video, and I wanted the sales video to not be a sales video. I wanted to just like come on and have a conversation about like, "Hey guys, I'm doing this. If you want it, here it is," kind of thing. Because I want to bring like the relaxed atmosphere that we have here in Biz Buddies. I want to like bring more of that into everything that I do, because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I kind of want to do everything right. But then I was finding I couldn't get myself to record. It wasn't even trying to record. I was like, "No, today's not good because the weather," or, you know, "I haven't showered," or, you know, like there's just so much resistance coming up. And then I was saying to Jen before we started this call last night, I called my mom and she was like, "Okay, well, how about you just do it?" I was like, "But," and she was like, just do it. I was like, "Oh,
Just
okay."
go on. Did you do it?
Yes, yeah, I did. So all I needed was a call with my mommy and then to record my sales video. But I did, and it was so weird. I did it in the first take because I found that once I was like, "You know what, I'm just going to do it," and it doesn't really matter. Like if you don't worry about whether or not someone's going to buy, you won't worry about whether or not the sales video is good. And I was like, I'm just going to create it. I like this offering. I'm going to stick it out there and see if other people like it too. And then it was so easy. I recorded it in one take in 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, there's a sales video. And then I was like, oh, I forgot to mention, you know, what the price is and that they should buy. So then I just recorded a 1 minute clip I can add on to the end of it. And all of a sudden it was like really easy. So I found that really surprising because I'm pretty confident in all of the videos I make at this point. So it was interesting to see that come up. And also interesting to see, you know, how starting Biz Buddies, because, you know, we talked about how we have tried to start this before. It's usually been me sort of being like, "Ah," and this time it's like, well, we're just doing it, and suddenly it's very easy. Because that's the other project I have on this month, is doing this with you.
Yay! Yes, it's been very good. And I have to admit, I like this atmosphere too. Like, but just before we got on, I was telling Niamh I actually have a really splitting headache right now. And if I was doing like a formal interview, or I work for a paper as well, like I do art. If I was doing an article or an interview that I was getting paid for, I probably would have canceled and rescheduled, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still wearing my dog walking clothes right now. I love it that we're doing it this style. Like, I didn't even put any eye makeup on, which I usually do for my other podcast, but for hanging out with Niamh, I don't do those things. And that's how we're treating this podcast, is the way we hang out with each other. So I'm really enjoying that. Also, I do want to say, for your challenge offering that you're doing, I don't think you do need to worry about selling it, because I am in your Lighted Up video marketing group, and I have seen so many people ask you about how to do challenges that will get as many people in as your challenges do. Because, I mean, I made a challenge video after doing your course and people liked it. I built my list with it. I didn't use it to sell anything. It was a list building thing. But I had nowhere near the sign up or impact or anything of yours. Like, so I want to know how to get more out of challenges. And I've seen enough people in their ask that I think it's already a very validated offer.
Yeah.
Mine, I'm not sure. People ask me a lot. I'm not sure if anyone will actually want to pay me to sit down and plan out their podcast, but we'll see. If they do, that's exciting. I'll be happy to try it, or plan out, getting on other people's podcasts. Cause that's something I really like doing too, is going on at other people's shows. It's so interesting. sometimes I still can't get out of the habit of asking them questions on their own show. Like I'm supposed to be talking about myself, but I'm like, oh, well, how did you do that? And what was that like? But
I like that though. I think that, I've been on a few podcasts. One was like, okay, so my first ever podcast experience was like the worst. Like I was super excited at going on a podcast. And then she sent me all the questions in advance. And I was like, why are you sending me questions? Like, aren't we going to chat? And then I went and listened to her podcast and was like, oh my God, she just asked the same 5 questions to everybody. And it's so freaking boring. Like, why would anyone want to listen to this? And,
were they good questions? I mean, did they get to the meat of anything?
No, it was like, what, if you could give one, I don't know, like if you could give one piece of advice, what would you get? It's like, I don't know. I mean, like to be honest, her podcast was cool. It was pretty short. And I'm sure her audience got stuff out of it, but I was like, but that's not how I want to talk. I want to I want to dig underneath stuff. I want to get to know the person. But I was saying to you, like, that's one of the things that I've always had is like, I want to connect, and I want to connect to people, like, even if I've never met them. I watch TV shows and I'm like, you are my new best friends, like the characters. And if the characters do something shitty, I'm like, how could you? Like I really get into connecting, even if these people don't know me. And so when I'm listening to a podcast, that's what I want. I want to feel like I had a chat with somebody,
Yeah, I totally agree. So, so we'll have to see how both of our new offerings go and update everyone in, I don't know, a few episodes from now. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably do our What's Up episodes at the start of every month. And yeah, and normally
do a quick recap. Be like, oh, so the effect of what we did last month was this.
Yeah,
it'd be kind of fun for people following it to know how it went, because that's the other thing you don't know. Like, you see people put an offering up online, right, and then it's over,
and then you're like, what?
Unless you joined it, you don't know how many people bought because you're not in there, and it may not even be a group offering, in which case you have no idea. Like, was it successful? Did other people like it? Did they get out of it what I got out of it? I don't know.
I know what you mean, and you never hear anything except later on, it's amazing. So it just, I would love to hear more of what's going on behind the scenes for people. And I also feel like I should tell our audience that I did not force Jen to record with the headache. She was like, let's do it.
Oh, no, not at all. No, yeah, you totally didn't. You were like, do you feel up for it? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, and that's part of just being real in real life too, is I have special needs kids. Sometimes my daughter doesn't sleep. Sometimes she screams a lot, and sometimes she hugs me hard and screams right in my ear. It's like, ah. But so maybe I wouldn't go on video for other things today, but for this, I totally will. I wanted to. I think it's important. I think when I first got into going online, I was focused on special needs and special needs finance and special needs services and all of that, and there aren't a lot of people going on video when they have splitting headaches and didn't sleep the night before, and to talk about it. And like, okay, so that happened. She is with caregivers now. She has her habilitation time, and I need to work now, and I need to just, make it work, keep going.
I'm sure sometimes you're like, now I need to sleep.
Yeah. Over the weekend, actually, I got really sick. So I asked my mom to come over and help, and I just went upstairs and slept while she watched movies with the kids for a bit.
Oh my God, that is awesome. Wow.
You're a long way from your mom, aren't you?
Yeah, but what I love is that I can call her, and I do feel really, really grateful that I can call my mom, and she gives such great advice, and she's super supportive no matter what. And I feel really grateful for that. So the other thing I wanted to ask for our What's Up episodes, just set it as we need to go on, is should we share what we're reading right now?
Oh, sure, we could.
Just very briefly. Not everything we're reading right now.
I'm just grabbing my phone to go take a peek.
Look at what have we actually read this month, or what's our latest favorite business.
You go first. I'm pulling mine up. I've been scattered.
I've been not saying it. Well, let me think. I've been reading a lot of memoirs recently, and I haven't been reading a lot of business books. And I think that sometimes, because it's like sometimes I want to hear story, and sometimes I want to hear, advice. But I have to just recommend to everyone right now. I read recently Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. Not at all a business book, but a memoir. And I didn't read it. I listened to it on Audible. And oh my God, it was such an amazing performance, and it was amazing stories about his life growing up in South Africa, and didn't touch on his career at all, but like the just the heart that he brought into it, I thought was so amazing. It stuck with me. I still keep thinking about it, weeks after finishing. So that's got to be the one that's coming up for me right now.
Well, that's good. I've actually been working on 2 memoirs myself, but they're both difficult. So I have put them down at different times. So on my Kindle, I'm reading Must Girls Love by Sabrina Must, who I interviewed on my podcast. And she wrote this memoir when she was 22, and it was shortly after her older sister committed suicide. So it was her going through her grieving process, asking why, looking for answers, digging through things, talking to her whole family, talking to her sister's therapist, and all these different things. So it's really good. It's a beautiful book. It's a little hard. The other one's actually even harder. It's called Tiger, Tiger, and it is a memoir of a young girl who was at the age of 7, met this older man who, let's see, when she's 22, he's 66. So what does that make her when she's 7?
In his 50s.
Massive age gap between them, obviously a pedophile, but it describes it from her perspective as a 7-year-old with a mentally unstable mother, a very angry, controlling father who is very distant from his wife and child. And this man comes in and starts helping, and the mother's relieved, and it tells the story. So that's another one I've picked up and put down. So like this morning on my dog walk, I actually was listening to Born for this, how to find, what is it?
Oh, the new Chris Gilbo one.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to pull up so I was listening to this, which was much more cheery. Yeah.
Oh, I actually have been meaning, like I've had that on my Audible list for a long time. I've read all of his other books, and they're so like, I don't feel like he brings a ton. Okay, this will sound really negative. I don't feel like he brings a ton of depth, or like I learn a lot from his books, but I find it so motivating because he has so much heart, and he brings so much like excitement to this idea that we can all work online, and it just makes me go, yeah, I'm doing it too. It makes me really happy, I think, listening to him and his enthusiasm for the whole industry.
Yeah, and some of his success stories I'm so baffled by too, because I'm like, you can make over 80 grand being a professional dog walker? Really? Can you? Is that for real? Or like that was the one that was this morning. There was like an Etsy story and a dog walker and a few others. And I was just like as I'm walking my dogs, I'm like, I walk my dogs every day. You want me to walk your dog? I'll walk your dogs. Like if I could turn my dog walk into, $80 every morning, obviously that won't come to 80 grand a day, but I think he must have had like a troop of dog walkers that he trained. I have no idea. Wow. He didn't go into the details, but it obviously got me thinking like,
stories as well. Like this is like your book that you're working on is sharing stories. And I find that like as entrepreneurs, we just don't have enough just plain stories of like, here's something cool someone did. I mean, sometimes you hear a little bit about this, but you really don't get that same elements of story, I find, as you get in, I don't know, in stories.
Well, either in people's real stories, like telling their own stories, or in fiction too. I like.
Yeah, fiction, and then there's a lot of fact stuff. Like there's a lot of books for like how to do it. But I always find if someone can bring in more of the person, it just makes it more rich, and it makes it more easy for us to connect to. And that's what Chris Gillibo does in his books, is it makes you feel like, wow, he's telling all of these stories of himself and other people who've sort of, just gone for it, even though they don't necessarily, have a ton of business skills yet or that kind of thing. They've just gone and made a cool idea come to life. And I find that so inspiring. So I bet your book's going to be super inspiring too.
And what was neat about this too is, like I've been in the online entrepreneurial world long enough now that I know about some of the people he was talking about. Like he does a Marie Forleo spot, and he does, there are a few people that I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, I know Marie's huge now, but when I did her course in 2012, it was the first time I'd ever heard of her.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know who she was. I'd never seen or heard of her. So that now 5 years later, she's appearing in books like this. It's like, oh, and not that I personally know her, but there were a few others. I was trying to think, who else did he mention? But anyway, that's probably enough on the books. But
yeah,
it's exciting to recognize somebody in a book and be like, oh, I kind of online know them. It's like, oh, you're internet famous.
Yes, so I will read that book then. Because I was just thinking, I just need something, like I just recently finished another memoir and it was another comedian's memoir, and I was like, okay, I've just I think I need something with a little more meat in it, because I just felt like I got nothing out of it. So yeah.
Memoirs can be, some comedians' lives are shockingly depressing. It's so interesting when you see someone who brings so much laughter and joy to other people who have such deep depressive things. I actually did download a Steve Martin book too, his book about art. Were you the one who told me about that?
No.
Okay, that was not you. He has a book on fine art. I haven't gotten to it yet, but it's in my list here. An Object of Beauty, a novel by Steve Martin, the comedian Steve Martin. Yeah. Oh, and I did just finish Don't Suck, Don't Die, Giving Up Vic Chestnut by Kristen Hesh, who is from Throwing Muses. I don't know if anybody knows the band. I had no idea she was an author. It's like her 5th book. Wow. I was so impressed. I was just like, and she reads it herself in her Southern accent, and it was really beautiful to have that on my audiobook. So. Okay, enough books. We're going forever if we get into like
books is like our catharsis or something. It's like, what are you reading?
A lot of times our calls get taken up with us sharing what we read to each other.
I know. I just have all these like lists of books to recommend. I have one from the like couple of minutes before we started talking. 5-second rule. You're right. Okay, we're not talking about it, but I've already written that down. I'm gonna go get it. So.
You don't need to read if you don't want. Here is the 5-second rule. You have a brilliant moment of inspiration, or there's something you really need to do, like make a phone call, make a sales page, something. Here's the rule: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then move your body and go do it right immediately. Like, don't let your brain talk yourself out of it, because there was something about like studies show it takes about 5 seconds for your all of your. Okay, what's the opposite of inhibitions? Is it inhibitions? It's not, is it? All of your like doubts and fears and everything.
Doubts are inhibitions.
Inhibitions or inhibitions?
Inhibited?
When you're inhibited. Oh, right. Okay. Isn't that funny? One of those words I'm just like, is there an opposite of inhibition? Inhibition. No, anyways. So inhibition. There we go. So yeah, it takes your brain a few seconds to quash your best ideas. So if you just move on it before it quashes it, or your intuition to say like, I should call mom right now and tell her this horrible thing that I have to tell her, or maybe not mom, but yeah. So there's a 5-second rule if you don't want to read the book, but she actually has some really good videos too and stuff.
Cool. Right. Well, thank you guys. This has been actually really fun. I'm looking forward to doing more of these What's Up, just because it's fun to talk about what we're working on when it's not all polished and perfect and
or even up yet. Who knows? We might even change the names of things that we're talking about by the time they go out.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear what you're working on. If you're on YouTube or somewhere where you can leave a comment, leave us a comment and let us know what you're working on. It might not be August still, but go ahead and tell us what you're working on right now. And if you're on iTunes, do all this. I just forgot. Subscribe,
rate, and review, please, because it helps us reach more people. And in your review, you can tell us what's going on or what you think as well, or what you want us to talk about. But I do think YouTube, the comment area, is probably the best place to have conversations, because we can't reply to anything in an iTunes review. But we really appreciate you listening, and hope you'll tune in for more.